Hey, we're back. Tim Lloyd, Jeff Hobbs for the Zero Hour, brought to you by Smoky Mountain CBD. And we are here for a recap show today, Jeff. We've got Aries 12 in the rear view from the world famous Cotton Eye Joe this past Friday night, October the 7th. It went down. Fun night. One of those more chill nights, if you well, it wasn't chill in the cage. There's a lot of violence in the cage, but as far as our end of things go, it's fun to have a show like that every once in a while, where you've got all amateurs there, not having to really to mess around with the state commission and the pros so much. Not as many moving parts. Back in the friendly confines of Cotton Eye Joe.
Yeah, man, how fun was it just to be back there? It had been felt like it had been so long. We had Amped, we had the big show, we had Chattanooga, so it just, organically, we weren't there. So it was awesome to be back, see everybody, Chuck, Dennis, Boy Billy, the wait staff. It was almost like a little homecoming. Not that we'd been gone for so
Yeah.
long, but it was just really cool. Like I said, and relaxed too, because Cotton Eye Joe picks up so much of the slack for us using their venue. So we're able to just come right in, concentrate on the show. And, a little scary in the beginning. Knoxville traffic.
Yeah, it was a bear.
Knoxville traffic had our buttholes puckered up a little bit there for a minute. A couple of, early afternoon, wrecks, I believe. I think we had, semis jackknifed and turned over. And so we delayed the start to make sure that fans that were coming did not miss the fights that they were coming to see. And, a little scary in the beginning, but lo and behold, you get kind of moving through the show, and then you happen to look up and look around at some point. You go, "Oh shit, there they are!" Everybody. So thank you to everybody that still stayed the course and battled through that traffic to be there, because it ended up turning out to be a really good walk up, Tim. Kind of looking at the books later, it was right up in there on one of our better walk ups. So thank you, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It tells me that we've got a nice little market built there, where people are excited to go see fights at the Joe. Not necessarily our most star-studded lineup here, but that doesn't always matter. Because sometimes it's the guys that are trying to make a name for themselves that put forth the best effort. We'll talk about it here today. Before we do that, shout out to our sponsor, Smoky Mountain CBD. Of course, you can catch them at SmokyMountainCBD.com. They hook us up with some great swag bags for our sponsors, and couldn't thank them enough. They got great products, Delta 8, Delta 9, totally legal here in the state of Tennessee. And tell you what, with some of the stresses that we were dealing with in the lead up to this show, just as far as like, hey, the ambulance isn't here yet, well, traffic's really bad. Oh man, I'll tell you what, it's nice to have one of those little Smoky Mountain CBD bags to dig into, Jeff, and cut the edge. So
Yes,
shout out to them.
I looked over and you had that Smoky Mountain sucker in your mouth at about 5:30.
Definitely. We appreciate those guys, and our VIP tables appreciate them as well. And our of the night award winners on this night all got that nice swag bag too. So let's get into it, man. We've got 13 bouts to get through, led off with tag team grappling, a couple first-time teams at 325 pounds. It was Pete Roche, Brandon Burkhart out of Team Chaos, getting the evening started with a 3-0, a shutout over Crossville MMA's Bubba Grant and Dawson Dillard. 8.5 minutes in, just about. Pete Roche took all the glory here. He got all the subs. Got a heel hook, which was illegal, and then a rear naked choke and an ankle lock. A little bit of talking to DJ Mackey, the coach of the Crossville team, afterward. He was hoping for some sort of I guess grace on that heel hook being executed, where those weren't those weren't allowed. Something we should think about, I guess, moving forward. We're so young in this tag team grappling, we just kind of make the rules up as we go. But what would you think about moving forward in that instance if you have an illegal sub? DJ had suggested the penalty being a penalty sub. So essentially, instead of you getting one, your opponent's team actually gets one for you using the illegal move. Nonetheless, a fairly dominant showing from Team Chaos.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to suggest. So, good job, DJ Mackey. This first thing when you said that popped in my head. You execute an illegal sub, immediately 1 point for the other team. Now you're down one. Yeah, that's a good idea. But it was a dominant performance by Team Chaos in this one. Bubba Grant on the Crossville team was another one that was affected by the traffic trying to come in. So
Mm-hmm.
he came in on two wheels as it was. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to open the show with this bout. And his teammate was there so early, he was
Yeah.
worried. He was looking, I think, through the crowd trying to find somebody that maybe step in. So, that Crossville team really didn't get a lot of time to warm up, talk about things, maybe get some of their game plan together, and it did kind of show. Like you said, old Pete was making sure he walked out of there with all the glory.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple of times Brandon Burkhart was, stretched out and leaning in like, "Come on, man, come on, give me one. Let me get one." And Pete was not having any of it. Again, you say it best when you tell everybody, listen, this is just Tim's guilty pleasure here. He loves
Yeah.
these, and I'm starting to like them too. Um, but it's a learning process. You can tell the guys that have really gotten into it, done it once, studied it. Teams that have done it, maybe the players haven't done it, but their team has, or their coach has been in the corner of someone who has, and so they're getting to really understand the strategy involved in this. And like you said, it's probably not going to take too much longer, man. Maybe about 6 more months of this right here, where we've got a good stockpile of teams that have done this, to where we can have a really good night of some fun tag team matches.
Moving on to the second prelim, we had two of these in a row. I'm going to kind of cover these together, Jeff. So both of these junior tie fights at 135 pounds to round out the prelims. Up first, it was Xavier Cox out of Phoenix MMA getting the unanimous decision win over Austin Fritz from Hobbs Jackson Wink, 30-27 on one card, 29-28 on the other two. So 3-0, and then 2-1 on the other two. Cox now 2-1, and Austin Fritz drops to 1-1. This is a solid fight, man. This was really good. Watching it back, Fritz had a great first round. He was really connecting with nice leg kicks and just kicks all around, kind of getting off first. Something happened in between rounds 1 and 2 where Xavier Cox really flipped the script and came on strong in rounds 2 and 3 and ended up getting that unanimous decision win. That's a good win because Austin Fritz is the guy that we've been seeing come out here and wreck shop in the juniors MMA division, but in the Muay Thai here, it was Xavier Cox getting it done. I'd like to see both these kids do this game at national thing here coming up. I don't know if Cox does grappling. Fritz definitely does. But a really nice win for Xavier Cox. And then the second prelim, also 135 pounds. This one was over fairly quick. It was Xander Persinger, now representing Agogi, getting a TKO in the first round, minute 14 seconds in over Maryville's Audi Baker. Persinger moves to 4-1 now with a couple knockouts. Baker 0-1. He has fared a little bit better in the juniors MMA. That said, there was a size advantage here for Persinger that has to be stated. It was fairly obvious visually as Baker walking around, right in the high 20s, low 30s. Persinger had obviously cut a fair amount of weight to get down to that 135, and man, and Persinger on top of that, very skilled, just very, very technical fighter and strong, athletic. Lined him up for a head kick. Dropped Audi Baker. Baker able to answer the count actually fairly easily, but Chris Bond still waves it off. The cobwebs were fairly evident, and err on the side of caution. Your thoughts on these two junior bouts? We'll just kind of knock those out together.
Yeah, really impressed with Cox. I mean, not only is he 2-1, we can't understate the fact that his two straight wins have been in about a 3-week time period.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in his groove right now and looking really good. Like you said, it was a light switch for sure between the first and second round. Very different. Xavier Cox came out in the second round than what we saw in the first round, or I should say, not that he was doing bad in the second round, but his opponent was really looking good in the first round. But he made his adjustments in the second round and looked great. We look at both of these fights together, and you could kind of see, a meeting of the two winners at some point as well, too. So,
yeah, that's the fight.
Yeah, I mean, hell, at this point, our cameraman was even buzzing in your ear, stating that he wanted
He was.
he wanted some of these kids. So we'll see. We'll see if he really knows what he wants, what he's wishing for, what he's asking for. So Cox really impressive. It's Corey Robeson kid. Corey, a Nashville guy who is a decorated jiu-jitsu player. So definitely pretty cool to see someone with a stand-up that Xavier
Hmm.
Cox does to let
Yeah.
you know that Phoenix MMA is not just a jiu-jitsu gym. Um, Man, Audie Baker, love the kid. Like you said, don't get it twisted. They were in the weight class together. Audie was just on the lower end of a weight class, where his opponent was, cut weight and was on the higher end of the weight class. But the size difference was definitely evident. The strength difference was evident. Audie Baker, you're just not going to be able to tell him any different. He wants to compete. He doesn't care who's standing across from him. The
He could beat
size,
every week if he could.
yeah, the size, the experience level, he doesn't care. He wants to compete, and when he loses, he's the first one to text you and tell you how good his opponent was and how great he was and how he can't wait to see what the future holds for his opponent and hey, when can I get in again? Uh, but I think the referee noticed, he knew where this was headed. Audie was going to probably spend most of this round retreating, having to backpedal and try to run away from the size difference, and try to hit his points, finesse it, but it just wasn't going to happen. And so kudos to Chris Bond for recognizing that and making sure that Audie Baker gets to fight another day whenever he wants and not have to be sidelined due to some damage that he's taken. So um, love Audie Baker, man. Like you said, Audie will step out there in anything. If it's MMA, if it's a grappling match, if it's now his first Thai fight, so
Mhm.
he just wants to compete. But like you said, I hope he takes advantage. Audie would be a great kid to take advantage of going to Nashville and competing all day in that nationals.
Yeah, 100%. And against guys they're going to be right about his size because they've got to weigh in. I think they have to make the weight like over and over and over. So
Mhm.
is going to be kids that aren't really going to be able to make that kind of weight cut. I wouldn't think repeatedly. So yeah, I'd like to see him and Fritz both at the very least get out there and give it a go. If Fritz has been real impressive
And
in the past. Yeah.
Persinger is a he was representing the Gogi, but and he had a Gogi there representing him. But that was a Joe. That's a Joe Long kid. That's a kid
Hmm.
that Joe Long brought to a Gogi with him. That he's been had his thumb on for a few years. It sounds like so.
Yeah, he's
A
been
little
taking him around to tournaments all
yeah,
over.
little protege of Rambo Joe. Uh, so obviously what kind of training he's getting. So it'll be interesting to see how far he takes us as well, because Joe Long had a really good has had and does have a really good MMA career, but Joe Long was known for that stand up and that
Mhm.
that was his bread and butter. So it'll be cool to see where he goes.
Moving on to the undercard, we had adult Muay Thai, 155 pounds. Abe Morris representing Barnyard MMA gets round two TKO, 37 seconds in over Derek Langlois from Chaos. Both those guys making their debuts. So Morris now 1-0, Langlois 0-1. Morris is something else. Morris is very, he's dialed in. He is zoned in. At the weigh-ins, I kind of noticed this. He was very intense. And I was like, yeah, this guy's, he's fired up he's in fight mode. You see that. Other guys get like that too. But man, this guy I think is just like that. That's just how he is, even after the fight. Standing around talking shop with him and his teammates out back on the porch. Super cordial and gentleman and polite, but there is a look in this man's eye of intensity that does not go away. And man, he throws those things, big right hands, thudding power, goes to the body. I thought that the Chaos Fighter, Langlois, it was obvious that he knew what he was doing. He was technically proficient. Nice jab, quick hands, just not enough snap on him to prevent, Abe from collapsing into the pocket and making him eat those big power shots. And eventually in the second round, it was all she wrote as they called a stop to it about 37 seconds, and he dropped him, and then he answered the count, but then he stepped in about 8-10 seconds later. We just really started pouring it on.
Yeah, even in payouts afterwards, trying to get this guy his travel money, he scared the shit out of me. There was just an intensity, like you said, in that look. Like, am I counting this money wrong? Is this the wrong figure? Why are you looking at me this way? And it was an intensity. Now, granted, everything that came out of his mouth was so, cordial and sweet and, respectful, but it was the death stare that worried me a little bit. I wanted to say, man, fight's over. Okay, you like have a beer, relax, man. But it's just an intensity that this guy obviously carries around at all times. Like I said, Langlois, he looked good. He was just trying to settle into good combinations and work a calculated fight. Where A Morris was just hitting those one hitter quitters and those big shots that were just that when they connected, they were changing the flow of the fight. Um, like you said, I mean, like why would it get a little 1-2 and you think, but then bam, it was just one
Mm,
big shot that would kind of rock him backwards, and now he got him out of his groove. Um, very intense guy. What was more surprising to me was his talk of dropping down a weight class, and I was trying to look at him and talk to him and think, where the hell are you getting this weight
man.
from? Where are you going
Yeah.
to pull this weight from? Now, granted, he could stop lifting and maybe lose some muscle mass pretty quick, but he was a very well put together guy. So if that were to happen, um, good luck to those guys down in that weight class waiting for him, because that was a big dude and intense. But even as is, even if he didn't drop right now, there's so many things I think you and I had just thought about immediately, like some really good looking matchups,
Mhm.
with some guys that we could put together. So lots of room on future cards for A Morse.
And he was our first performance of the night award winner.
Yes,
So
yes.
maybe a little something out of that bag cut the edge a little bit later in the night. Rounding out our Muay Thai fights, we went to the heavyweight division. It was Benjamin Moreno out of Body Shot Combat. Getting the win over Chaos Johnny Hutchinson. We'd seen Johnny a couple times before. And this was a round 3 TKO, a minute 48 seconds in. Moreno moves to 2-0 now, undefeated. Hutchinson now 1-2. Man, watching this one back and watching it live, this is super close. Like, not an easy fight to judge. Even when I watch it back, I'm like, man, I really don't know which way I judge this fight. I felt like Johnny kind of had like the more like damaging, like telling blows, but Moreno was like very active and probably like outland as far as like volume goes, probably had better activity. So there was an argument for either guy both rounds. For argument's sake, in my head watching it live, I had it 1-1 going to the third. Ended up not really mattering as Johnny upchucked. But man, only 12 seconds left in the fight. And honestly, I kind of thought that was his best round he was having up until that point in the third. But as they tell them in the rules meeting, if you throw up in the cage and it's over, there is no continuing. That's a TKO. And not how we expected that one to end, because we've seen Johnny go 3 rounds in both of his other fights. One against Hank Peppers that was like a grueling affair, a bloody grueling affair, and he didn't seem any worse the wear for it. So I don't know if this is just kind of a freak thing that happened. His coach Josh Cade afterwards said that it is something that has happened to him in training a lot. But in the fight so far, it hadn't reared its head. Nonetheless, Benjamin Moreno gets the win, and he had like some Bray Wyatt shit going on
Yeah,
afterward too.
it wasn't even close enough to Halloween
Yeah.
to be pulling that shit out. I wasn't sure what the hell was going on. I'm watching this guy throw up all over our canvas and trying to concentrate on that, and then my peripheral or what the hell's going on back here? This guy broke out some the chick from the ring
Yeah.
stuff, man. So I did. It was a lot of shit going on in the last closing seconds of this fight, but I know at the end of the night or at the end of this podcast here, we always try to talk about the most surprising things, and it's probably going to be it's close to one of my most surprising things was just that Johnny Hutchinson did that, because we had seen him perform previously in some grueling 3-round hard fought fights, and it's just not something we had seen. And I think more somebody more surprised than we are was his head coach, just that this was how it ended. Like you said, he did say that this is something they've dealt with in the gym, but we've never seen it in the cage with him. And there was nothing about the fight that made you think he was out of shape or not conditioned well. He didn't take any huge shot to the body that may have jostled something around in there.
Yeah.
So it truly was surprising just how it came out of nowhere, because he was arguably winning the fight and cruising his way, to possibly a decision, to just kind of like hold up a second, let me let me throw up everywhere. I don't know. Maybe we should be a little quicker on the draw guys, throw your bucket in quick.
Yeah.
Let's not have to clean this mess up. But I'm sure we're going to see this guy again pretty soon. And on the flip side, Marino, you don't really look at him, man, and you don't, he's a very unassuming looking guy.
Mhm.
But
On
what
the
a
smaller side of heavyweight.
yeah, smaller side of heavyweight. But we saw him at a previous fight night show.
Mhm.
And, regardless of how the fight ended, he was holding his own in there and looked good. Again, arguably could have been a close fight and, 1-1 going into the third. So Marino's, he's got some chops too. So I'm sure we'll see both of these guys back, pretty quick.
Moving on to the MMA portion of the card, it was a 165-pound catchweight Ricardo Powell, team ground and pound down in Villa Rica, Georgia, taking on Mark Harper, independently fighting out of Atlanta. Both these guys making their debuts, and it was Ricardo Powell getting the TKO 57 seconds into round one. He was just all over him real quick. Got takedown very quickly. Harper squirming his way around and turned into him a couple times, managed to almost get out and tripod out for a moment, but just couldn't get away from Powell, and he puts him away with ground and pound strikes just a little under a minute in. Harper was a kid we didn't know a whole lot about. He hit me up and said that he wanted to give this a shot. And I think he needs to find a gym and needs to get some good proper training in. He had some traditional martial arts experience, karate type training in the past. You could tell from his stance and the way he kind of came out that he was looking to rely upon that. But just needs to get in the gym, needs to get some MMA training, work on that grappling, and we'll see what he can do in the future. Maybe after a couple years of training. Ricardo Powell, great to work with, very pleasant, on time, and appreciative, cordial, all that good stuff. I'd like to see him in a little bit higher level fight next time, just to kind of see what we're working with. But a good start for him.
Yeah, Mark Harper. There's no doubt the nerves were there. Yeah, he had this,
Very, very, very much so.
all day long leading up to a fighter meeting. I think we had some contact with him, and it was very evident he was not scared, nervous. He was just nervous his first MMA fight, and had to be walked through the day. And I think what was told to him still held true, that he's going to feel so much better, win, lose, or draw, after the fight's over, that he overcame his nerves and competed. And that's exactly what he did. Like you said, he had some moments where you thought he was going to be able to kind of hold his own to take this maybe a little later into the first round. But it was a typical, and I don't mean it in a bad way, it was a typical, amateur debut for both guys type fight, where just that there was no feeling out, there was no setting up your spots. It was just a whirlwind tornado. As soon as the bell rang, it was 100 miles an hour from 0 to 10, and that's kind of typical sometimes with two debuting guys. And and that was the game plan that worked for Powell, especially not knowing that he had a very nervous opponent across from him. That was probably the best route to take with him, to kind of overwhelm him at first. I'm going to be interested in see Powell maybe against, I don't want to use the word better competition, but more experienced competition. But, not as nervous, a little more seasoned, somebody that's maybe been in there once or twice already, experienced, win just like Powell did, and see how he stacks up against someone else who's just a little more calm, cool, and collected coming into the fight. But I'm sure Mark Harper will be back, and I guarantee you he's happy that he did follow through with the fight, and I guarantee you he feels better about himself that he did overcome those fears and those demons and get in there and compete. And I would dare say that we're going to see a better Mark Harper the next time he decides to step in there, just for the simple fact that he followed through with this.
I would imagine you're correct in that assessment. Moving on, we had featherweights, 145 pounds. Jared Lopes, Anthony Lopes, I think.
Andrew, or was it
An-
Andrew?
I think it's
Anthony,
Anthony.
Andrew. We
Anthony, yeah.
better not mess this up,
Yeah,
Tim.
I know, man. I know we're trying real hard, y'all. Lopes out of Body Shot Combat. There, first time that we've hosted Body Shot Combat, and his teammate, Benjamin Moreno, we talked about just earlier, and they're looking to take the sweep here, and he does as he defeats Alex Dees out of Pride Wrestling down in Cleveland. Round one TKO, vicious knee to the body. 32 seconds in, Lopes moves to 2-0. Dees falls to a hard luck 0-3. It was a fairly unassuming opening to the fight. Both guys kind of even in the opening exchanges. Dees looks to close the distance and go for a takedown, as we assumed would happen at some point. Him having the wrestling background, but in that initial clinch, Lopes just lands a vicious knee to the body, drops Dees, and that's all she wrote. And it gains Lopes a performance of the night, the second of those so far, and unfortunately earned our man Dees a trip to the hospital. As good vibes to him. Upon first glance on this thing, I think everybody's just like, either he had the wind knocked out of him and he's and is just struggling to get his composure back, maybe a cracked rib, something along those lines. But apparently there was a little bit more damage done than what could tell on the surface, as he had some potential liver damage as well. So good vibes to you out there, Alex Dees. Hopefully you get healed up. A tough luck 0-3 at this point. He's fought some tough guys, always game, but come up on the wrong side of this one. All the same, Lopes definitely showed that he's a guy that is going to be on the radar now in featherweight.
Yeah, very impressed with Lopes. Uh, Started with the intro wearing the traditional headdress
Mm-hmm.
into the cage. Very cool. Obviously, when you see people don the headdress, it's not just for costume. It's heritage, and you can tell it was something he was very proud of, and it was very cool visually for us to see.
Yeah.
I loved it. But man, such a cool kid, sweet kid. Very polite, easy to work with. Didn't even really talk a lot. He was very much a yes sir, no sir kind of guy. And then he got in there, and when he saw his opportunity, he became an animal. And he took that opportunity with that knee to the body. And I think all of us are sucker for body shot
Yeah.
endings. So you get real pumped when you see them. And man, did he deliver! Um, I think, like you said, this immediately and quietly just puts him, and I just mean
Mm-hmm.
quietly because we didn't see him coming, kind of off the
Right.
radar type of guy, but immediately just pops him right into a lot of conversation there with some really good matchups. Sitting at 2-0 now with, two straight wins. Um, in the amateur ranks, people don't stay amateur long enough. That 2-0 can get you right into a discussion for a contender type fight
Mm-hmm.
next, and possibly a title shot uh, pretty quickly, especially if you're just sitting at 3-0 in a division that is going to see a lot of people probably go pro soon and not stick around to build huge amateur records. So, man, I hope we can get this kid back in pretty quickly.
Of course, up next we had the always tough to match Xavier Horton up next in action. This was a 175-pound MMA catchweight bout. Xavier Horton coming in with a record of 1-2 from Team Ground and Pound. Gets the late minute replacement Caleb Lambert out of Team Mayhem out of there. 41 seconds into the first round, TKO Ground and Pound. So Team Ground and Pound goes 2-0 on the night, both by Ground and Pound. And they didn't have to be in the cage very long to get those wins. Horton now 2-2, Lambert 0-1. Like I said, Lambert on 4 days' notice. Props to him for stepping in, saving the fight. Had a lot of guys pull out on Xavier, and maybe he didn't do anything to help that matchmaking process in the future with this performance. This guy's an animal. Just he's a specimen. He's a sweetheart on top of it. He's great to work with. But like this guy is he's coming in there to hurt you, man. And he put a hurting on Caleb here.
Yeah, like you said, we talked about it previously with Abe Morris. Where he's dropping this weight from, I'd like to see. If he's going to go down a weight class, he could probably start with his legs, his thighs, Uh, those things are huge. But like you said, not an easy guy to match make. I mean, we almost had to, put the call out there and, kind of make jokes on, once again, another announcement for Xavier Horton, another change in opponent. So I was really surprised to see that, we had one that saw it all the way through, but took him for a ride too. He comes from the Torres Finney school of,
A
where,
flight.
yes, where frequent flyer miles likes to send his opponents for a
Mm,
ride.
yeah,
and
that
it
was vicious, man.
and it was a big dump, man, a big dump in the cage there. Um, Xavier's talked about, and I know you look at his record now, just sitting at 2-2. But I know he has tossed around the idea of going pro probably sooner rather than later, uh, hoping that made it a little easier to find opponents when there's funds, financial gain, and
Hmm.
purses involved, getting guys to stick around. But before he does that, I think he's definitely going to have to figure out where he's going to be weight
Yeah.
wise before he makes that jump. Because again, even at 170, he's going to find guys that are dropping from 200 pounds, 210 down to 170. He's going to find 155ers, dropping from the 80s and 90s to get to 55. So he's going to have to find out where he fits in that. And but again, there's some interesting fights out there. If he does choose to go pro, and especially at 155,
Oh Lord, yeah.
we are 155 rich. You know,
Hmm.
I think we're looking to kind of dabble and help in a card later this year where it's got like 5 155 pros
Hmm.
sitting around looking for opponents. Uh, so he would fit in nicely in there if he can figure that out. I don't know if that's too soon for him to figure out how he's getting to 55 and figuring out his diet and his body. But um, I'm not going to say that that's probably the worst idea right now. Because again, like you said, Tim, it's hard. It was hard finding him fights. He's been on like 3 cards and been able to perform in one. The last 3
Yeah.
we tried to do. So imagine how hard that's going to be trying to explain to somebody to look this kid up and, oh yeah, it's at 55 now. Um, so I don't know that might not be the best idea for Xavier Horton. But like you said, man, great guy to work with, man. He rolls with the punches better than anybody
Yeah.
I've ever, seen us have to, make that phone call over and over and over again.
Hmm.
The opponents drop, the opponents drop, the opponents drop, and still have a dang smile on his face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can't beat it. The attitude is awesome with that guy, and man, he don't turn down nothing. He's down to fight whoever. I had him matched with black belt after black belt. He at no point has he ever been like, I don't know. He's always in. So I
And
think that will behoove him as a pro too. I mean, he's gonna have lots of opportunities. He's gonna have lots of offers. Having that kind of attitude and just the way his athleticism, his explosiveness, his power. He's not going to be a walk in the park for anybody. No matter who he fights, he's going to
no,
be a handful just to have to corral.
his coaches had to step in, a show ago because he accepted a fight at a higher weight than what he was walking around at, at the time that we called, and they had to step in and go, pump your brakes a second,
Right,
because to
right.
him it was just no question. It was like, yeah, fight, compete, let's go. So the guy is game for anything.
Main card, we kicked it off with a catchweight bout at 150 pounds. Frankie Gallardo from Agogi taking on Chris Hendrick, independent out of Knoxville. Both guys looking for that first win, 0-1 coming in. And it's Frank Gallardo that gets it with a rear naked choke and an Aries record, 29 seconds. As he moves to 1-1 now, Hendrick goes to 0-2. Yeah, this one was, I mean, in 29 seconds, there wasn't a whole lot to happen. Honestly, Hendrick, pawing a fairly quick jab out there early, but Gallardo got underneath, real quick takedown, took his back, sunk the hooks, rear naked choke. That's all she wrote. And gets our third performance of the night award with that Aries record performance as well as a blue belt.
Yeah, one of the things I was talking to somebody there that you know, again, we say it is an Aries record. All right, so some of the people were questioning, records and what that record meant. That is an Aries record, and I'm so thankful, and that when we did start this back at Aries One, that it was something that you had decided, Tim, to there's nothing worse than a year, 2 years into a promotion, then trying to decide
Yeah.
to look up records and who holds the fastest this or the quickest that, and then wished you had started it sooner, that you had
Mm.
the forethought enough to go ahead and just start jotting these down from the get go, that we're able to keep up with that and recognize those. Um, we sound like a broken record, man, but this card, we keep using the word sweetheart and good kid and good guy, but this card was full of so many just such good people. These are fairly new fighters, early in their careers, haven't been jaded yet too much by the sport and have chips on their shoulders and walk around mad all the time. They're not really cutting huge weight, so they're not angry. So we got a full card here of a bunch of really cool human beings, man. And Frankie Gallardo is one of them, man. So easy to work with. Heck, he's even helped us in the past on
Yeah.
Cage Crew just to, be a part of things. And it was really cool to see him received his blue belt from his team afterwards. And we talked about it briefly after the fight. Because sometimes you hear people make comments or things like that, and they're like, "Oh, he got his blue belt for beating this independent guy." No, he didn't receive his blue belt for beating this independent guy in 29 seconds. He received his blue belt because of the hard work that he puts into the gym and the training and the hours that he's put in. It's just a nice place to present it is in the cage after a performance
Mhm.
and after a submission. It has nothing to do with what you just did. It's what you've been doing up to that point. And couldn't have gone to a better guy. He had a really tough debut outing, for us.
Yeah,
And
Antoine Jennings.
yes, Antoine Jennings, really tough debut for us. So it's really cool to see him get back or get on the winning side of things. And I think he learned a lot from that loss, that debut loss. And he didn't jump right back in there. He wanted to go back to the gym and get better at things. And Frank Gallardo is a guy that comes from a good gym. We know the training that he gets and the coaching that he gets. So he's a guy that could easily find his way into some conversations pretty soon. So congrats to him. Chris Hendrick, keep grinding, my man. He wants to do this bad. And again, he's so easy to work with. Never a coarse word with a guy. He's very inquisitive, asks questions a lot on how things work, and he's trying to learn. But again, I think you made the comment about somebody earlier. He's gonna have to get with a team, get with a gym, get with some training partners that can help him. He has a game plan in his head on what he wants to do, and you'll see him start the fight every time he's with us. I'm going to start popping a jab, but
Yeah.
he doesn't understand that the other guy's got a game plan too, and maybe sometimes it's not as much what you want to do as you have to be ready for what the other guy's going to do, and he's not seeing those things where he knows that if I pop this lazy jab, I've got a guy over here from Agogi who's got a good, ground game that he's going to be looking to take me down immediately. Where so he's got to get a team where he can get a game plan together.
Yeah, maybe I'd like to see him try a Muay Thai fight next time. Where he can strike and show what he can do. The brief exchange they had showed a nice little jab, his quick hands. Just got to tie it all together. Up next, it was a featherweight bout, 145 pounds. Young Devin Emerson, the freshly turned 18 years old Devin Emerson from NKI, gets a win in his MMA debut over the veteran Trip Hallman. And he gets it in round one by a rear naked choke, a minute 21 seconds in. Devin we'd seen as a junior doing the Muay Thai, but just turned 18 very recently, so he was excited to get in there and do MMA for the first time, taking on a guy with some years on him and some experience in Trip Hallman, who had already had 5 MMA fights, a couple Muay Thai fights, in his 30s, so he's kind of developed that man strength. So this is one we were excited to see. Trip was able to kind of get that takedown early. He tripped him down, pardon the pun, but able to use some wrestling earlier, but reversed. And it came back up to their feet after that. And Emerson started really kind of tagging him on the feet, kind of got Trip hurt, ended up getting him down and getting the submission of his own. And victorious in that first win for NKI. His teammate, we were supposed to see Jesse Fain on this card for a second representative from NKI. Unfortunately, he was injured after the weigh-in. So this was the only guy for the McMahons on this card, but he gets him home undefeated anyway, 1-0 on the night for NKI.
Yeah, it was a good graduation from the youth ranks to the adult ranks here for Devin Emerson. It was weird for me not to have a sister on the card. Usually they come as a
Yeah, I
pair,
know.
the Emerson siblings. But this was his night. This was Devin's night to shine, and he did, like you said, coming in as a not just a debut, but an 18-year-old MMA debut against an opponent that at that point had five. This was now his sixth, amateur MMA fight. So there was a lot of pressure there for him to step in there against somebody that's as seasoned as Trip Hallman was. Trip in five fights is kind of seen it all, the ups and the downs, different styles, strikers, wrestlers. He'd seen it all. So this is a huge task for Emerson. Trip is still a guy that as long as he's on the offense, things are going good. I think defensively, he gets shell shocked, to me when it comes to the exchanges. He keeps his head up high and tries to do the lean away, defense, I think, which puts him in worse situations sometimes. But it can't take anything away from Emerson. It's not about, what Tripp did wrong. It's about what Emerson did right. And that was, again, good game plan, stay the course, fall back on his training with, like you said, the McMahons and NKI and pull out a victory. Trip Hallman, once again, had a heck of a crowd there, heck of a support system. And the nice thing is even in defeat, they don't get up and they don't pack up and leave. They stay and support the show. They stay and support, Trip after the fight with pictures and things like that. And he's got a really good support system, really good, fan base and family there supporting him. So I'm sure we'll see Trip back because he don't quit.
He might not have got the win, but he won the best entrance of the night. I'll give him that.
He did. Again, we're getting close to Halloween, so he decided to change it up. Jonathan Ivey, I think somebody brought up him. He's the one that invented, I think, in our area, the theatrical horror movie entrances. He's done Michael Myers. Jonathan has done Leatherface with a full bloody butcher's apron before. We've seen Charlie Alexander do it in Nashville, I believe. We've seen Briven do it in Chattanooga, but this was the first time the Joe got to see it.
Yeah.
And so it was a cool. It was cool in that tight, confined space of the Joe to see it happen. So he did. Yes. Intro of the night.
Feature bout up next. A lot of people looking forward to this one. Probably the most excited people have been for two 0-1 fighters to go at it, actually. It was 205-pound fight light heavyweight. Miles Peak from Agogi Combatives gets his first win, improves to 1-1 over Marshall Murphy out of Knoxville. He drops to 0-2. Murphy's a tough 0-2. He's going to be a guy that his record doesn't necessarily speak for what you're getting yourself into. But this was a really fun back and forth fight. Both guys had their moments in every round. I thought Murphy was ahead early. Peak started coming on in the second round. Third round, super close. But it was an armbar win for Miles Peak with just 5 seconds left to go in the fight. 2 minutes, 55 seconds in third round, armbar submission, and the final performance of the night award goes to Miles Peak. Man, this is a really fun one. This is a really good fight. Marshall Murphy, someone had told me that he said he was done after that one, and I was like, Marshall, when I saw him leaving, I was like, you can't be done, dude. He's like, you're 0-2. He's like, but I mean, you were arguably winning in both of the fights that you lost. You've got to get dialed in with a good team, and you've got some potential. I know that he'd been working with Chaos some in the lead up to that fight. Not enough for him to be officially with the team, but if he could latch on with those guys and get some good training for several months, I think he will be just fine. And a great win for Miles, man. Always good to see Miles, and really easy to work with, pleasant guy, had a good fan base there, tough as they come, and he kind of got to run the gamut of all of it there in that one fight. He got to got to get some striking, got to get some wrestling in, got to be on his back for a while, and ultimately come out with a nice submission that I'm sure made his coaches proud.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely came out of nowhere. You saw the clock. Okay, we heard the clacker go. We got 10 seconds. He's in a mounted position. So you figure it's just going to end that way with some ground and pound, and the bell's going to ring. The referee's going to separate them. But no, with 5 seconds left in the fight, he decided he saw the arm there, and hell, why not? Let's give it a shot. It was even weird looking back and watching it back too. I didn't really realize until I watched the replay. He didn't even have both legs across Marshall. His right leg was, kind of stuck under the body still. He didn't have both legs laid across, the chest. He was able to pull it off with really only, one leg extended against across Murphy and grabbing all that arm.
Muscled that shit.
Yeah, he did, and some of that I'm sure was exhaustion too from Murphy. Just like, okay, there's 5 seconds left, I can't fight this, and then realizing, oh shit, it hurts too.
Yeah.
I don't want to injure myself further. But man, this is like you said, 2-0-1 guys, and there was so much anticipation. I don't know that we've seen anticipation and vibe in a venue for 2-0-1 fighters to fight, but. As you can clearly see with the last name that Miles carries around with him, the crowd was there for it, and large contingency of the Trevor Peak family and fan base there. So you knew it was going to be loud, and you knew that it was going to be rowdy on his end. But surprisingly, Marshall Murphy, being an independent guy, arguably got a pretty close to a similar pop and crowd participation. And so you had the dueling fans going, and you had the dueling pops, and every time you saw a reversal, it was an explosion from the crowd. Which man, that vibe, we just, as promoters, announcers, and things like that, matchmakers, you just feed off that. When you hear a pop like that every time someone muscles a reversal, in the cage, man, it just gets you fired up. So you're into it, and your goosebumps are going. So it was that kind of match where it was just back and forth, and you see Peak take the top position, muscle him over, and you think, okay, this is where this round is probably going to end. And next thing you know, nope, muscled right back over again. And it's routine. The timekeeper is to our right, and Tim, you and I both. It's always that quick lean.
How much time? Right?
How much time? And it's like, he reversed that exactly at half. How the hell are you going to judge this round? Where one guy literally had it for 1 minute and 30 seconds, and he reversed it at 1 minute and 30 seconds. And you're like, oh shit, the judges are going to have a good time with this one. But it was a fun fight, and neither one of these guys had. I'd hate to think that Marshall Murphy was going to hang it up after this. My suggestion was, you dip your toe in that Team Chaos pool, man. You need to jump on in it and get there full time and see if you can get to be a part of that team, because you've got so much to offer. The weight class, especially in our promotion. So
yeah, it's a shallow pool. It doesn't take much to turn your things around there quickly.
No, absolutely not. So, but man, what a great moment for Miles Peak. You can tell. We talked about it briefly after the fight. Man, this was about getting that 0-1 record fixed, and not wanting to walk away or just permanently say you are done with this sport with an 0-1 record. So he was able to fix that, but now it reared another ugly head, and that's having a 500 record, which it's like, well, okay, now I can't live with that shit. Who wants to be average? Who wants to be who wants to be 500? So I'm sure we're going to see Miles Peak again, probably in the near future. He's going to take some time off, I'm sure, and he's got a beautiful family that he celebrated with after the fight. Good pictures with the kids and stuff afterwards. But I imagine it's not going to take long into 2023 before we hear Miles Peak's name come up again. Let's get this thing on the other side of 500.
Co-main event for our first ever featherweight title for the amateurs, 145 pounds. Joseph Hishman of Shield Systems improves to 4-0 as he becomes our first featherweight champion with a rear naked choke over a very tough Daniel Kilburn, who drops to 3-2 out of Barnyard MMA, minute 52 seconds into the first round. And man, this was just a grappling clinic from Joseph. He got the takedown fairly quickly, fairly easily. Patiently kind of worked him over until he finally got positioned to sink in that rear naked choke and take home that strap. very classy individual is Joseph Hishma, and one of the more unassuming guys on the roster, to say the least. And I don't think you would assume that this guy is a fighter if you meet him out and about. He's so polite, so unassuming, and very well deserving here. We've seen Hishma in just about all, I think I've booked all of his fights, even dating back to when he was doing just kickboxing, and he's really improved a lot. He's grown a lot. He's gotten more confident over the couple of years that I've been working with him, and proud to have him as our champ.
Yeah, listen, this guy, he comes from a gem of animals, Scott Hot Sauce Holtzman, Demir Farhabagovich. I mean, he
Mhm.
comes from a team of animals, but he is an animal in his own right. It's just a different type of animal. Those other guys are ferocious, and he's calculated, man. He's so quietly vicious, when he gets in there, because he's so precise with what his game plan is and what he's going to do. That takedown was just it was precise. He knew exactly when he was going to shoot for it, get it, take it, get it, and then once he got it, like you were saying, everything was about viciously just kind of setting himself up for that rear naked choke. He was going to keep punching from around, tagging the face, tagging the head, loosening him up, and setting his opponent up for his opportunity to wrap that arm around the neck. And he was not going to give up on it. He was going to keep pounding him out until he could get it. And like I said, he's a different kind of animal, just a quiet, unassuming viciousness about Hishma. Like you said, just quiet, so respectful, so classy, does all this the right way. Talked to his coach afterwards, and again, this is a kid who everyone laughed at him when he said he wanted to be a fighter. And then, like you said, Tim, you started booking him on his stand up, his kickboxing and Muay Thai fights. I think they kind of laughed at him again when he said he was ready to go MMA, because they're like, no, you're just a stand up guy. You're not going to be able to make it in MMA. And here he is sitting here at 4-0, has not turned down a fight that's been offered. Um, and it's looking so good every single time. When we talk about it on every preview show that we've had where he's had a fight coming up, it's always that question of, is this the one? Is this going to be the one where things start to kind of even out? Is this going to be the one where he's going to see some adversity and maybe some holes in his game? And every damn time he makes us look like a fool, because not only does it not happen, it doesn't even remotely happen, it seems. Like, he had to put up with zero adversity, and that is no knock on Daniel Kilburn at
Oh,
all,
Kilburn's very good. He's
because
very
we
tough.
know how good Daniel
Mm-hmm.
Kilburn is, and that's what makes it more impressive. Is not because Daniel Kilburn is a slouch, and this was just easy for Joseph Ishma. It was not easy for Joseph, but it was dominant, and that's what makes it just so impressive. Is because we do know the level of skill from Daniel Kilburn, and that he was able to dominate every position of this fight. Um, you know, I, I think this is a kid who, I don't think we have to worry about his team not handling him correctly. They're going to bring him along exactly. They're not going to rush into anything, but he is going to be a problem, for a lot of people. So, guys that are out there and think that they want this, um, I'm not saying you don't, but you better be on your P's and Q's if you're going to step in there with Joseph Ishma, and don't take him lightly. Don't assume anything when it comes to Joseph Hishma. He is the new Aries featherweight amateur champion, and he's that for a reason. And if you misjudge this kid and take him lightly, you're gonna be in the same position that Daniel Kilburn was, where you're just thinking, "Oh shit, how did that just happen to me?"
Yeah, and Hishman is not a guy that comes from this glorious amateur wrestling background where he's like a lifetime competitor in that regard. Yet he's so good and so technically proficient, you wouldn't know it. Watching back Daniel Kilbert and Johnny Gill, we talked about it last week. Johnny Gill, we saw at Augusta. This kid's a stud wrestler. I mean, fucking good wrestler. And he was able to get takedowns on Kilburn, but he really had to work for it. He really had to fight for it. It was a grueling kind of, he really had to grind on him to get those takedowns. And eventually Kilburn was able to knock him out in the third round. I mean, to see Hishma go out there and just almost effortlessly look like, to dump Kilburn like that so quickly. That was one of the most surprising things for me on the night, because I saw this as being like a war of attrition potentially, and for the timing, I guess, is really what it all comes down to. And he timed it so good, made it look so effortlessly. So proud to have him as our 145 champ. It brings us to our main event, our first ever cruiserweight champ. And we got the 225 division starting up here at Aries. First ever cruiserweight champion. It was Jonathan Coffey of Mushindo Martial Arts down in Marietta, Georgia, picking up that strap with Julian, the Black Cowboy Goins, as his opponent here. We know him from he's one of the bouncers at the Joe. We see him all the time. Come in at 2-1. Dow drops to 2-2 though. Coffey is 4-2. Round 2 TKO due to ground and pound. 2 minutes 55 seconds in. Only 5 seconds left to go in this one. But man, this is a classic heavyweight fight, man. These guys were slinging and banging. It was some big shots landed. Both guys started to huff and puff in the second round. We kind of expected that too. But man, I tell you what, this is one of those fights where it was, you were on the edge of your seat because you just didn't know what was going to happen. Both guys were really having like moments where you thought the other guy was done for sure. Big shots landed by Goins. And Coffey able to weather the storm, kind of get some takedowns late, and then towards the end of that second round, lay in the ground and pound in. Goins just not able to last those last 5 seconds to make it to the third round. But even if he had, I think both those guys going to a third would have been, yeah, I mean, absolutely zonked trying to come out for a third round. Classic slugfest, man. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. Congrats to Coffey, our first ever cruiserweight champ. I know Goins will be back. This is the lowest he'd ever cut for a fight, and you could tell he was in much better just physical shape. And so at the very least, I know he has to be happy about that. And man, Coffey's only 20 years old. He's a young buck still. So I'm very excited to see how his game progresses. But he's very deceptively agile in there. He's a quick guy. He's a lot of heart. He's not going to quit. And man, great fight. Really kind of sent the Joe fans home a little disappointed. There we got people there to see Pooh, but that Jonathan Coffey and his coaches at Mushindo were stoked. I talked to his coach at the end of the night, said it was one of the best nights of his life. They were stoked.
Oh, absolutely. The kid was ecstatic with how things turned out, as well as he should be. And you're right, it sent the Joe crowd home, a little on a downer, but that's the difference between your purpose. We're here to put on good fights and fun fights. Ticket sales wise, it helps when your hometown guy is on the card, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us who walks away with the dub. It was about putting on a fun, good fight, and that's just part of it. Sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. We always hear those, oh, they got someone beating his hometown. Listen,
yeah, right.
That's not, what are you talking about? That's not the purpose. So we don't owe hometown guys victories.
Does that mean we put on a competitive fight?
Yeah. You put on a competitive fight. It's going to be, it's going to go one way or the other. And whether Jonathan Coffey was the hometown guy or the fan favorite, it doesn't matter. We're still proud that he walked away with a championship belt of ours, because he earned it. You're right.
You're not going to go in there and just get Goins out of there without a scrap.
No, absolutely not. This was a fight of just explosions, is what it was. It was the waiting for the next explosion. Each fighter would, get backed up against the fence, take a lot of shots, and you would think, okay, this could be over. And it was just that waiting for the opening for another explosion. And whoever it was that had their back up against the cage would just come out and explode across the cage and push the other guy now across the cage to the other side and put their back up against the cage and get their 30 seconds of big shots off. And it was just a back and forth like that. Not surprised that it ended the way it did, and I just mean that neither was going to give. I think in the stand-up they would have just done the explosion back and forth. I knew that this fight was going to end on the ground because they were both so exhausted. Whoever could get the upper hand on the ground would probably end the fight, just because the other guy was just going to be so exhausted from everything they'd given in the stand-up that they weren't going to be able to fight off the other heavy guy in a good dominant top position. And that's exactly what happened. Um, uh, Coffee was a much smaller in stature guy, but he took old Julian for a ride too.
Mm-hmm.
He was able to get the big guy off his feet. Thank goodness it didn't work, but I mean Julian is still new in this game, and he reached for that top of the rail, hoping the guy like let me stop this takedown from happening, but he wasn't stopping it from happening. But man, it was a really good fight. Coffee, you can tell this is a kid who's lost a lot of weight growing up in
Mm-hmm.
his life. He's not a big guy, so the losses that you see on his record um, were from situations where he was fighting true heavyweights, in the heavyweight division, and he's a small guy for that weight class, and you know. Having a 240, 250, 260 pound guy across from him is going to be difficult. So I think this is where he needs to be, if not even still lower. And I think he wants to get lower. He still wants to continue his weight loss journey and get in better shape. Um, so this cruiserweight division is much better for him than a true heavyweight division, I think, and where he can shine, even going down if he can hit that 205 at some point here soon. That's even going to benefit him, because then we talk about those fights earlier in the show, Tim, those 205s, and we talked about how shallow that is. If he could find a way to insert himself in that,
Mm-hmm.
just another piece to that puzzle that could make for some really good 205 fights. So. Congratulations to Coffee. Keep your head up to Julian. I know he loves doing this. He's not trying to do it for a living per se. He likes doing it for for the Joe, for the crowd there, for his friends that he sees each and every weekend there at the Joe. And he does want to get better, and he is getting better. And I think we saw that with his transformation in his body and his
Mm-hmm.
weight loss. So he does take it serious. And again, another guy that if he continues to lose weight and get in better shape, if he hits 205, we still got more problems now at a weight class. So I don't care what the fans felt. I was happy with the main event. The main event fight, because both the guys gave everything they had to this bout.
Be interested to see who he'd dig up for a challenger next for Coffee now that he's got the strap. A guy like Finn Martin is a guy that kind of swings right into that small, heavy weight.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of has to work to get the 205 kind of type that 225 division is kind of made for. So maybe
Right,
who knows
but
down
all
the
he's
road
got
that
to
he can
weigh
put
is
him.
206 to be the
That's
cruiserweight.
right.
So
That's true. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah.
So definitely keep your eye on that. That wraps us up for Aries 12. Real quick, Jeff, who would you say what was the most impressive performance from you on the night, and what was the most surprising performance for you on the night? For me, I'll go first there. I'm going to say the most impressive performance for me is going to be that of Joseph Ishma, in that he was able to just do his thing so quickly with just really no flawless victory, more or less, over a very tough guy in Daniel Kilburn. And I'm going to say that my most surprising result of the night, I'm going to take it actually back to what we talked about earlier with the heavyweights, the Johnny Hutchinson debacle, I guess you would say, in the third round. That kind of surprised me out of nowhere. I really didn't expect that. Not a guy that we had, would peg as that being an issue. How about yourself?
I brought up the Hutchinson thing as a possible surprise, but honestly, my most impressive and most surprised are Hishma. They covered both those for me.
Yeah.
It, I was so surprised that it went down the way it did, which then turned into so impressed that it
Yeah.
turned out the way that it did. So both of those questions for me would be Joseph Hishma. Just surprising that he continues to keep getting better and better every time. Surprising that he was able to dominate a sound opponent in Daniel Kilburn. So then by default, how impressed I was that he was able to do that against such a sound opponent in Daniel Kilburn.
That's going to do it, folks. Aries 12's in the books. You can catch the replay for the next couple weeks on Spectation Sports. We'll be posting it here, the fights here on our YouTube here after a couple weeks, though. So you need to make sure you like the channel, subscribe, so you get notification every time. Yeah,
There.
right. Hit that little guy.
QR code right
Little
there at
QR code over there.
fightertix.com. So guys, so when you see that QR code, it's going to take you right to fightertix.com, and you will see the list of upcoming shows that we got. So that is your one-way ticket right there to fightertix.com, and get your tickets to the next Aries event.
That's right, folks. We'll see you guys next time. Well, I don't even know if I told Jeff yet. Coming up a little bit later this week, we've got Justin Brown going to join us. We're going to talk about the Gamma Youth Nationals event coming up November 4th, 5th, and 6th in Nashville. So stay tuned for that and a whole lot more. For Jeff Hobbs, I'm Tim Lloyd. We're signing off for another edition of the Zero Hour. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
See ya.